and to the application creation, I want to build my first application, which is going to be Dong Tam, let's say, purchase order app. I can add a description, a color, and a logo, right? So here I can choose from my templates. So here I can use different templates, right? That I can browse within my applications. Here I can discover more templates. We're gonna see about this later on, right? But yeah, here what I want to do is just start from a blank, but you can have many starter apps if you want to. Okay, let's create our application very quickly. So my application is now created. So that was really fast. And you can see that now as a owner of the application, I can, number one, invite team members, right? So here I can invite people. Those people, they can be of different roles. So you can be a Scrum Master, you can be a business engineer, you can be a product owner, and you will have certain rights, certain permissions based on your role, right? Are you able to build the application? Are you able to build some user stories? Are you able to deploy the application? This all defined by the role you're gonna get, right? Please note that the team here is the team responsible for building the app, not the business users, not the end users of the app, right? And then we'll have the board or the planning, which is included in the project management section right there, right? So let me show you how it's done, which is basically where people who are technical and non-technical will be collaborating to, number one, write their user stories and make those user stories part of sprints, right? So that the Scrum Master, the product owner can manage those sprints. Yeah, slowing now. And here by default, I will have 1, 2, 3 different sprints, right? So here I want to add a new user story. For example, as a user, I want to access a nice homepage to manage my purchase orders, right? So this is a very simple story, right? That is part of this sprint. Of course, I can make parts of another sprints right there from the backlog, etc., etc. Right? So this is pretty much where you're gonna have to do the project management in a nutshell. Also here you have the deployments section where you can select the version of the application you want to deploy and where you want to deploy it on public cloud or private cloud. You have the pipelines, basically the CI/CD pipeline. So how do you want to define, the process, the flow to deploy your Mendix applications? You can have some metrics on your apps running on public cloud. So for example, if you want to get information on the CPU usage, the end user usage. Oops, I'm having a small glitch here. All right, not sure what's going to happen. Maybe I can show you this in another licensed app. Metrics. Yes, so this is example of metrics where you can have, for example, the number of external requests, API requests, the number of user accounts, meaning the people who are using the application, the JVM usage, the memory usage, the database usage, etc., right? So this is where pretty much you're gonna get your metrics, etc., etc. You can set up some backups. You can visualize the logs of your apps. You can generate the APK or APD of your application to be deployed on iOS or Android Marketplace right here, etc., right? So that is the platform, right? Where technical people and non-technical people will be collaborating together. Now I want to actually build the app. So what I'm going to do is to click on Edit in Studio Pro. And what it will do is basically open up my IDE, right? So an IDE is the tool used to, build the applications. You might be familiar with Eclipse and TDJ, right? So this is our Eclipse, if you like, right? It's just that it's contextualized to Mendix. But this is pretty much where you can build all your application. To build a Mendix application, it all starts with a domain model. So the domain model is basically the database, right? So here, in order to make things quicker and smarter, I want to ask Mendix AI to generate the model for me, right? So here I'm going to ask Mendix builds a purchase order app on top of SAP. I'm going to ask Maya, who is our AI assistants within Mendix, and you will see that Maya is able to help us and all the way through the application process, from generating the domain model, also building the business logic, also identifying the performance issues, etc., etc. So yeah, in no time, I can see that Maya was able to generate for me the purchase order, the supplier name, the invoice, the material, etc. Of course, I can add more of those data, right? But I think I'm pretty good with this. So that's I would say number one. Purchase order here, I want to add the name of my purchase order. There's the dates already. I want to add a description. And let's say I want to add a status of this purchase order. So status is going to be, and you can see that Mendix is able to guess what's going to be the data type, right? So Mendix AI is also able to help me there. So the status, PO status, a purchase order can be created, pending, rejected, or complete. By default, I want, when creating a PO, to be status created. And we are pretty good to go for now, right? I'm happy with what I've got. The only thing I want now is an integration with SAP. So to do this, I'm going to go onto my API catalog called integration here, and I want to see what is available to me as an API, right? So what is available as SAP environments. I can see that here I have my SAP production using OData, right? So in my example here, I'm using OData, but yeah, you can use BAPI or iDoc connectors if you want to, right? So what I want to do is to select the product API from SAP and drag and drop it right there within Mendix, right? So using OData, I make it super easy as a developer to integrate with a SAP catalog, right? So that's why my entity here is going to be purple. Purple means that the SAP data are not stored physically in the Mendix database, right? So they are stored in cache in the runtime, but they are never stored in the Mendix database, okay? Very good if you want to avoid duplication of SAP data and Mendix data. And then what I want to do now is to connect the purchase order with SAP product, right? Because of course my purchase order will be related to products, right? So here I'm basically avoiding the hassle of dealing with, foreign keys, primary keys. Mendix does that for me. Also, now I'm done with my domain model. I'm really happy with what I've got, right? Within a matter of minutes, Mendix was able to generate all of this for me. Of course, I can add more fields if I want to. I can add more entities if I want to. Now I want to quickly use Mendix AI to generate pages, right? So I want to generate pages for all my entities. Probably not. Otherwise, it's going to be a bit messy. So I just want to generate for my purchase order. I think it's going to be fine enough. So I want to generate those pages, and that's going to lead me to the, to the purchase order page right there, right? So here I can have my PO, dates, my name, description, all the fields I've just created, right? So in one click, I'm able to build a page. Of course, I can change the page with my toolbox here. I can add a button, an image, a video. I can even add a building block here, basically. Yeah, so for example, if I want to drag and drop something right there, I can do it here in no time, right? The product here, I just want to change, oops, sorry for that. I don't want to change to product name and not currency codes. Yes, that's much better. And maybe here I can add a picture. Let me do the configuration using the structure modes, right? So here the structure mode is very useful for developers like myself to exactly see where I want to handle things. So here my image obviously is not stored in Mendix database, so I'm going to use the SAP URL so that Mendix can on the fly show the image. And I want to add the dimensions, the weight and release day, right? So let's do this. I want to add the dimensions. So here I'm mapping out the front end with the backends. Dimensions. And then I want to do the weights. So do I have a weight somewhere? Wait. Where's the weight? You have weight measure. Yes, exactly right. There it is. And then I have the release day, which is going to be a date. And I'm going to use this one, last modified. There you go. So I'm really happy with this. I'm able to, create my page and add something else to my page. Now, what I want to do is to add up some business logic, right? So here I'm going to right click on this save button and add a Mendix AI microflow, right? So I'm going to click on generate validation microflow right there. And Mendix AI is able to guess what kind of validation rules I want. Like the name, the description should be mandatory, right? Same as the date, etc., etc. I can add more validation rules right there. And I can see that at the end of this business logic, we call that microflow, I can commit and close my page. So let's create this microflow very quickly thanks to Mendix AI. Mendix does that for me in one click, right? So I have my validation rules right there. If you want to have a look, this is my validation rules. Okay, so it's quite complete. I can add more if I want to. And then once my purchase order is valid, then I'm committing to the database and closing the page, right? Very good with that. So now let's try our application maybe. I have my home page, which is completely empty. So I'm gonna do a little bit of building very, very fast. Let's take this one. Welcome to Dongtam portal, purchase order portal. Here, when I click on that button, I want to create a new purchase order. So I'm creating an object. This object is going to be a purchase order, and I want to select the page I've just modified. Very good. And then I want to have a menu bar right there. So I'm going to add some rows and columns very quickly. There you go. I'm going to use the building blocks for cart actions. There you go. And then I'm going to have the inbox, for example, for my tasks, my requests, and all requests. So all requests, for example, can be accessed and visible by some users. So for example, only the administrator can see the all requests, not the simple users. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. So maybe now we can give it a go and try deploying our application for the first time, right? So you'll notice that within a matter of minutes, I'm able to build my first application integrated with SAP. And we're going to try it. Do we have any questions? Is that clear?
That's clear now. How about the user management and organization for that?
How about the user? What? Sorry.
Authorizations and security and organization.
Yeah, sure. So Mendix allows you to define 3 steps, 3 phases of security. I'm going to show you that in a minute. Security here can be turned off. This is the first thing that I'm doing right now, right? So you have no permissions, but also you can define permissions as prototype or demo, right? So here you're gonna have some user roles. You can add new user roles if you want to, right? You can define the password policy, right, when creating a new user. And yes, you will be defining permissions on the pages and logic level. When you select production, you will have the opportunity to define permissions on the page level, right? So let me show you this. You can define permissions on the page level, on the logic level with the microflows, and on the entity level, on the domain model level, right? So Mendix is probably the only tool that allows you to define those permissions on 3 layers, right? The backend, the front end, the logic.
Ví dụ như là nếu mà bao quát của nó được này, đó là cái BT đâu đến security lúc này, từng cái screen, từng cái entity security.
So here I can see that I have errors because Mendix is able to check that, hey, you've created those pages, but actually no one is allowed to access those pages or this microflow here. So what I'm gonna have to do is to go in security and say, okay, this page is gonna be accessible by the users only, not by administrator, because the administrator cannot create a purchase order, of course. And then the microflow for validation, only the user can access it, right? I click on OK, and that will clear all my errors, allowing me to deploy once again. Once application is deployed, right? So here, this is going to be my results. I can click on that one here, select the thing that I want, select the product. My SAP API is being called right now in real time, right? And here I can see the URL of my SAP image, right? So remember that this image is not stored in Mendix; it's actually still stored in SAP. So when clicking on this, I can see that the validation rules are being kicked in, right? So I'm going to have to fill up the name, the description, the supplier, the invoice, etc., right? And that's going to create the purchase order for me, right? So this is how I'm able to create a Mendix application really fast with the backend, the front end, and the logic, including validation rules and security. Now, the last bit that I want to touch base on is workflows. So once my purchase order is created, right, I want to be able to, for the administrator to validate, approve, or reject this purchase order. To do this, I'm going to have to go with a workflow right there. So I'm going to call a workflow using this activity here. My workflow doesn't exist, right? So I'm going to have to create this workflow called manager approval process. Okay, so now my workflow is being created, but it's entirely empty. So once again, I can ask Mendix AI to help me with that workflow configuration. I can add a user task, a decision, a parallel split, right? But yeah, basically what I want to do is to add a user task for the administrator or the manager to approve this purchase order. So manager approval is going to be the name of this. I want to offer this user task to certain roles.
Sau khi mà ok hết tất cả các thông tin rồi thì nó sẽ create một cái copy như là một cái API một phát rồi ra cái video rồi cái đó.
So here you can add some outcomes, basically approve and reject buttons, right? Like this, you can have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever it is, right? You can have many, many options. I still have an error here because this manager needs to have a UI. It needs to have a page so that it can see the purchase order and approve or reject it. So to do this in one single click, I will create the approver page using one of the templates that we have, and Mendix is going to be smart enough to create that page for me, right? With the approve button, the reject button that I've created earlier on, all the information regarding the PO.
Hối thứ từng thứ khi mà mình đi cái PO kiểm tra cái nợ, kiểm tra vùng, kiểm tra đủ thứ luôn. Nó chỉ là một cái tôi sẽ chờ cái micro process trong đó cho mình kiểu tới hai cái con gì bệnh cái đấy thì nó ra thì cái tiền mà thành không đỡ bóp không thì mấy ông bí suy ra được cái đấy lên tình tiết phát rồi.
Thì trước đây phải gọi điện thoại in báo cáo cho con.
Yes.
Yep. So here also as a manager, you know, I can add comments so that I can explain why I approved. Let me change this button style to a big fat green, and this one is going to be a big fat red, for example, make it obvious.
Nice.
So I can explain here why I approve, why I reject. I can have the activity timeline of the workflow, who created it, who approved, who rejected, who's the assignees, etc., etc. Right? Of course, my workflow here is very, very simple because you can go much more complex, right? For example, if I'm approving, then I want to go to second approval from the administrator, right, etc. The administrator can approve, like final approval, or send back. Okay, so if I'm sending back, for example, I can use the jump decision to say, okay, if I'm sending back, I want to send back to the manager right there. So here I'm going to select the manager approval, which is the first step that we have, right? So if second approval manager clicks on sendbacks, that's going to jump right here, right, on this manager approval. And then for final approval, that's the end of my workflow. And for example, I can add a macro flow. This macro flow will be able to send back to SAP, for example, right? So remember that macro flow are our business logic. You can do whatever you want with macro flows. You can call an API. You can send BAPI messages, etc., whatever it is, right? So this is probably what I want as the last step of my workflow, being able to call an API, call my middleware if you're using your middleware, whatever it is. And yes, that's pretty much the end of the demo. Maybe what we can do now is to maybe simplify this application a little with this workflow a little bit more. I want to run the application one last time so that I can show you what it means to trigger the workflow. So task inbox is the one that I want. There you go. Making sure that security are enabled. Yes, that looks good. What else do I need to do? Yes, I'm going to go easy with the validation rules right there. Okay, so I want to disable my validation rules so that we don't have to empty. Okay, sorry for this. This thing is annoying. There you go. Just better use Mendix AI to do this. There you go. And then let me run the project one last time. Okay. Application is being run on my local machine. Now my application is running. Perfect. Then I want to connect myself like that. I want to be not an administrator, but a user. So the user can have access to this button right here, PO, description, blah, 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 whatever it is. I want to choose a product like this one. And I want to select the dates like this, click on save, right? And that's going to trigger the workflow. And this workflow, normally I can go on my inbox. Mendix offers me this out of the box inbox, right? Where I can have the user task, etc. It's just been created like right now, right? At these dates. Let's have a look. And here I can see my new PO with my product selected, etc., etc. So here I have the choice. I can leave a comment, for example, see the timeline, assign to me or assign to another user. I can reject or approve. In my case, I just want to approve, and that's going to be the end of the workflow and the end of this part of the application, right? So that's a very simple application built within minutes, right? One other example I could show you is this delivery application, right, that we have built on top of SAP. So basically here, the idea will be to help the delivery guys in their endeavor to deliver their sales order, right? So here the truck drivers, for example, the engineers, they can have access to data from SAP, like the sales order, the name of the customer, the tax amount, the billing status, etc. Everything can be accessed to this from this Mendix application, right? Also, this Mendix application has a direct connection with integration, with Google Map. Well, that's easy, right? But also, I want to add this section to the delivery of my routes right here. And also what I want to do is to calculate the optimal routes, right? So from here, I want to be able to plan the routes. And from Chicago to Philadelphia, for example, I have the ability to amend the delivery route. I can add another option here. Well, it doesn't work for this, right, etc. But yeah, I mean, in a nutshell, this is the kind of application you can build with Mendix when it comes to delivery and engineer productivity, right? So remember that those templates can be found here. So they are publicly accessible. So if you want to get a first look at Mendix, maybe you can start from scratch, like what I did, or if you want to directly access one of the templates, they are free to access right there, right? So if you want to have access to it, you just need to ask. And that's it. That's what I wanted to share with you. I think we've covered most of it. What we did is to have a Mendix introduction, Mendix and SAP, use case in the success stories, demos. Now we can leave the room for a Q&A. So yeah, if you want any clarification on what you can or cannot do with Mendix, questions of any sort, you can ask them now. I cannot hear, unfortunately. I think you're muted, but yeah, I don't know if there's any questions.
Hi, Theo. The question is that if we have a lot of applications, let's say more than 20, so how we can prioritize and how to build a roadmap to migrate the application?
Yes, so that's a very good question. Let me. So to assess and prioritize, we have what we call the portfolio workshop within Mendix, right? So um, unfortunately, I don't have time to show you everything about the portfolio workshop, but it's basically an exercise that we do, that I'm doing myself as solution architect with my customers, where within this portfolio workshop, I'm able to get an idea of what you want to build. So the idea is that you will give me the use cases, the solutions you want to build, and depending on the business value and the complexity of those use cases, I can help you prioritize and assess those use cases. So number one, we need to know, hey, is this a good Mendix fit or is it not? Number two, what is the complexity of those applications, right? And then once you have the complexity of this application, you have the business value of applications, right? Is this valuable enough for your company to invest in Mendix, right? Because if you do something very simple but that has very little value for Dongtam, maybe your board is not going to be happy because you are investing in a platform that does not show like big value, right? So if you're interested, we can conduct this kind of activities, the portfolio workshop. It's basically a 1 hour and a half, maybe 2 hours exercise where you share with us your use cases and we assess those use cases and we share the roadmap. We build a roadmap together on where to start within 60 days, where to structure and where to scale.
That means we have to create manual one by one application to like this. Cái này nó cái cách thức mà nó xây dựng cái roadmap lộ trình đó, và nó làm cái portfolio workshop. Thì trong portfolio workshop nó có cái trạng giống như vậy. Cái này là dữ liệu giá trị á, và luôn cho cái này có ok cái này tác tiền rất là hiệu quả nữa. Cái này là sự là khó khăn của cá đó. Ví dụ cái nào mà tích khó khăn ở cái đây mà hiệu quả cao, ví dụ cái app ở đây thì tập trung những cái khu này, hay là cái app đó nó quá khó nhưng mà bên nó vẫn có thì mình có thể là cũng sau tập trung vô cái nào khó khăn tích khó cắt đó thì nó sẽ phân vùng nó thành một cái vùng này thì được tập trung vô mình đặt cái vùng nước thì cùng nhau trao đổi luôn. Thì đây là từng cái use case một. Ví dụ mình nói tôi những cái phần cùng với capex là có thể làm ngay và luôn mình lại rất là nhiều của các vị mà chỉ lo rất dễ dựa trên cái kinh nghiệm của em, dựa kinh nghiệm của người ví dụ em để tạo nó một app đang chạy rồi, bây giờ em phải migrate qua đây, chỉ là em bỏ app đó chỉ là cái bước tiền họ sẽ xây dựng như đây là cái độ phức tạp của app nó như thế nào, thế là khó dễ hay là khó, cái đấy ok, cái này nó là có template rồi, cái này nó dễ lắm. Mà cái thì em mới nhìn em nói cái này về value rất là lớn, cái này rất là quan trọng.
Nguyên hỏi
là nó chọn được rồi á, nó chọn được rồi giờ đưa nó lên
cái develop lên Mendix lại hay là
mới nó đi qua đúng rồi chứ không mấy kiểu mà đưa cái code cũng có tự động đọc code
mình clean up lại, mình đưa lên nhưng mà nó đã rõ thành được flow rồi làm cũng nhanh. Cái khó là cái mình chưa rõ cái
ok mình hỏi ý đó đi nha, hỏi ý đó
đợi thôi đi.
Okay. Hi Tails. The next question is some app we already have the shortcuts, let's say in Java or in Python, for example. Now they want to migrate this app into the Mendix. How easy for them?
So yeah, I think we maybe we can touch base on this. So maybe when you are migrating those applications, there are a few things to consider. Number one, you need to migrate the application in itself, right? So you need to migrate the database, you need to migrate the UI, you need to migrate everything. Here you have two options. If you ask me, by far the best option would be to rebuild this application that exists already. So you know that the requirements are there, they are built, right? It's super easy to build them with Mendix, right? The intent here is to use the backends like this, domain model, the logic, etc. So you might have to replicate what you have using Mendix. If you want, you know, a piece of recommendation, this is probably what I would do, right? It sounds like, you know, I will have to build from scratch again, but actually, yes, that's true. You will have to start from scratch again, but it's actually super simple because what retains you is usually the understanding of the requirements, right? So understanding the requirements is what takes the longest time. But once you have the requirements, and you have those requirements because your application exists, then you can rebuild them using Mendix. Also, you can leverage Techworld, right? So Techworld, for example, has developers who are able to understand those requirements and they have the Mendix knowledge so that they can migrate those very, very easy. Now, that being said, if you really want to, you know, migrate the database, etc., you can import your XML schema of your database within Mendix right here, right? So your database can generate an XML or DLL, right? You can import that within Mendix. Also, in your existing applications, sometimes you have some CSS, right? You can import those CSS within Mendix. So if you want to reuse your classes, if you want to reuse your stuff, etc., you can do it as well. So that's for the UI. For the microflow now, we have what we call Java actions, right? So once again, my recommendation would be to build everything you have within Mendix. However, if you don't want to do that, maybe you can use your Java actions or your JavaScript as well, codes, and directly include them within Mendix, right? Is this recommended? Probably not, because you will be losing the benefit of low code, right? Doing this here, you will stay in high code, right? That means that, you know, you will have to go in your Java class and fix and debug it. You can do that from Mendix, right? But it's much easier to do this from the macro right there, right? So I hope I'm being clear. So that's the first one, being able to migrate the application. Second part, and this is the easiest, I would say, is migrating the data of your apps, right? So here we have many options. You can migrate from text files. You can migrate from database directly, right? We have a database connector available in Mendix. It could be API, database, REST files, whatever it is, right? So migrating, once your application is built, migrating is actually super simple because we can basically replicate what you have in your existing apps with Mendix, for example, because the domain model here is super simple, it's super flexible, sorry. So yeah, this is pretty much how we approach this.
Thì đơn giản thế thôi.
Cũng được 50% rồi.
Ý kiến là cái UI này có data model.
Master data.
Ý là cái code dùng được luôn đấy là đưa cái Java vô đó và đảo không recommend cái chuyện đấy. Như thế là sẽ trở thành rất là heavy hack code trên cái này. Nó
Không nên
cái component
thằng low code là high code này
chạy.
Form này của đang hot trên AWS.
đúng ra
Vậy là cái cách mà triển khai cái ứng dụng này trên doanh nghiệp
những cái user mà đang sử dụng ở nội bộ thì nó giá cũng phải là 25 đô gì đó, nhiều lắm.
còn có dev user
Không, nó mình chung luôn. Và khi mà bên anh dev phần này ấy, thì Tụi Hán và Mendix là offer cái gói là free trong cái việc là dev development. Lúc nào anh đưa vào sử dụng thì bắt đầu mới cần một cái license để mà sử dụng.
Tức là đây là mua license xong rồi Mendix đào tạo bên partner đào tạo sau.
Là đúng rồi. Khả năng đó là giống như dạng mà tụi Thắng làm cho trường đội chơi marketing là mình chọn cái portfolio là cái app nào khó, rồi mình cùng làm bên anh, rồi sau đó là mình transfer lại, rồi bên anh tự làm tiếp những cái tiếp theo.
Tức là mình chọn một hai cái app.
Dạ đúng rồi.
Trong cái chuyện trên lựa chọn luôn đúng không?
Dạ đúng rồi.
Lại xong rồi bắt đầu. Dạ
đúng. Với marketing người ta có một cái team IT tầm 20 bạn, người ta cho học rapid để hết luôn, học trong vòng 1 tháng, rồi sau đó là làm chung với cái team bên Tụi Hán, bắt đầu bên kia người ta sẽ làm từng cái, ví dụ làm UI, làm master data, làm integration, làm process. Đúng rồi, đúng rồi. Đúng rồi. Thật ra là vì mấy anh á, là người rất là rõ cái hệ thống của mình về mặt data, về mặt flow, anh chỉ cần biết được là cái làm sao để anh xử lý công nghệ thôi là sao, rất là nhanh, đôi khi còn nhanh hơn tụi Thắng. Ai làm được
một flow đó để chọn một flow về các cái định hãy xét ra xử lý tiếp.
Vậy là cái leader của business side hoặc leader của IT là cũng the same gọi là
Nó có hai loại trong này, nó external và internal. Internal là người có domain của mình, external là người domain của ngoài. Thì cho bạn cho vendor customer đó là external, internal là người trong nội bộ mình, thì nó có phải tính.
đó. Thì Thắng xung ra làm một số ý. Thứ nhất là chắc chắn mọi người đã xem được cái nội dung là Mendix nó là cái gì rồi đúng không? Thực ra Mendix là có từ 2005 ấy, là năm ấy. Nhưng mà sau đấy từ 2018 thì Siemens mua lại để đưa vào một cái chuỗi hệ sinh thái về các giải pháp về phần mềm công nghiệp số và chuyển đổi số luôn. Thì ở đây nó cũng có một số cái về low cost giúp cho mình xử lý một số cái app nhanh, và nó giúp cho cái đội gọi là IT đội có thể là từ xử lý một số cái công việc của mình được. Đó.
Next step đi
Ừ.
cái vòng tròn đầu tiên đó là đầy đủ hết rồi.
Ừ.
Bây giờ mình next step là cái như nào để mà cho đồng văn có thể sử dụng được này.
Ừ. Đó, ví dụ như là phần mà hôm vừa rồi anh Nguyên ấy, chia sẻ là làm một cái app thì lại bằng Theo đúng không?
Theo
Anh có hỏi gì Theo nữa không? Ừ.
hello Theo.
Yes.
So we discussed I think thank you so much for your section. The customer file clear about the solution and benefit. So we are discussed about the next step.
Okay.
And let you know. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Theo. Yeah, please stand by if you have time. Yeah, you can say out based on your side. Okay.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay, thank you so much for your time. Yeah.
Hôm bữa